Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Stories Worth Telling. Today we are live with Flip Awesome Aguilera. Flip, thanks
Yeah.
so much for being here, man. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate you taking the time to want to hear my story.
Absolutely. So I know that, man, you've got quite a few things that you do, and I know it all kind of ties back to maybe one vision. And again, being able to kind of catch up with you a few weeks ago to kind of learn about that. So, tell us a little bit about kind of your why, the things that you do, and then also tell us a little bit more about the vision.
All right. So what's my why? So earlier today I was on a with a one-on-one at somebody here in the Colorado Springs community, and he kind of asked me what's my why, and it's something that I've actually clarified a little bit more lately. And my why is it goes back to World War II America, right? So World War II America, we had problems back then, right? We had some major problems, but even with those problems, this country came together to overcome a common obstacle that we needed to overcome, right? So all the other, let's call them the smaller problems, went to the side. This whole country stopped everything they were doing and mobilized itself to win that war.
Hmm.
Right? So how is that connected to my why? How that's connected to my why is I feel that not only the United States needs to do that, but I think the whole world needs to do that so that we can overcome the problems that we have set for ourselves. And I think from my perspective, the only way we can do that is to practice becoming our best selves. So I want to help people become their best selves.
I love it. Yeah, and I know you do that, because of with nutrition, holistic approach, a lot of these things that a lot of us may be struggling with, a lot of these problems, right? I know for you, and being able to help me like just learn how to breathe better, and properly, all of those things. So how do a lot of the things that you do, right? Developing maybe the right mindset and coaching people, getting them maybe more physically fit, physically wealthier, things like that. A lot of that, how does that tie directly to your vision?
Well, the name of my company is Sweat Nation. And if we're going to be honest with each other, it's going to take sweat to accomplish anything, be it sweat
Mhm.
equity, be it sweat physically, whatever the case may be, it's going to take sweat. And, a lot of people equate sweating to something that's uncomfortable.
Mm.
And what I'd like people to realize is that discomfort is there to make you grow, right? Like we live here in Colorado Springs. This is a very Christian place. And one of the quotes that I love the most kind of reminds me of Christ himself. And that quote is, it's not the load that breaks you, it's the way you carry it,
Mm.
right?
Love it. Absolutely.
So, so if we want to bring in Jesus into this conversation, he carried that cross purposefully with conviction because he knew that the outcome was that he got to save all of us,
Mm.
in that perspective. So what are you carrying in your life? And not you, but everybody. What are you carrying in your life that's either serving you or not serving you? Because some loads we don't need to carry. We need to put them down because they're not serving us. Well, some other loads we need to pick them up so that they can begin to serve us. So what load is it that you're carrying? And is it breaking you or is it serving you?
I love that. And I remember when the first time you told me that, I was just like, oh man, it was like so convicting, right? Because you realize how much stuff you actually are putting out there, how much stuff are you unnecessarily carrying on your shoulders, and all those things. Guys, if you are tuning in live, just type in hashtag live to let us know. If you're catching this on the replay, hashtag replay. And of course, any questions that come to you as you're watching this, right? Feel free to post them up in the chat. Flip is definitely open to answering any questions that you have, and connecting as well. Fairly new to Colorado Springs, right? And again, tell us how long you've been here again.
3 months.
3 months, yeah. So, again, officially welcome and glad to have you here, man. I know you're making a really big impact in a short amount of time, and that's awesome to see. And definitely on board with the things that you're doing and pushing here. So, as you're transitioning, right? To maybe from some of the things that you used to do versus, the way that you're seeing things here. How have you had to maybe adjust or pivot, to be able to help accommodate, your vision here?
Well, just so people know, I did move here from Miami. So, Miami is a completely different type of animal, right?
Mm,
So in Miami, I would say there's definitely more of a vanity. So people want to look good more for vain reasons. Not that they don't, that they don't want their bodies to feel good and all that, but it is a very much a culture of how you look. And it's probably because we have such an influx of people from South America and the Caribbean and all these places, and these places, they are places that people really care about how they look
mm,
because they're warmer places. And when you're in warmer places, you wear less clothes, you just want to look better.
mm.
Where here in Colorado, people want to feel better, and the reason they want to feel better is because they want their bodies to be durable enough to go play in these mountains that we've got all around us, right? So it's a different foundation. Now, within that foundation, one of the things I like to tell people is we all still live in the same spectrum. And an example I have for that is, do you know how we can only see the colors of the rainbow? Like, that's the spectrum that we can see. Cats can see ultraviolet, they can see beyond what we can see, but we can only see in this spectrum. So same thing here, same thing in Miami. The way that we can optimize our bodies, the way we can optimize our mind is still within a spectrum. And I've made it my business to really learn that spectrum and how to help people embrace it so that they can become the best version of themselves.
Absolutely. Now, when you're talking about the very best version of themselves, right? And again, different people are always working on different things, all that stuff. But, when you're looking at that full approach, maybe for somebody who doesn't know exactly what you do, tell us a little bit more, walk us through what that looks like of being the very best version of yourself.
Well, the first thing I like to bring people in to start to even dissect about themselves, or what are the stories they're telling themselves about themselves and about other things. Are those stories serving you or are they not?
Mm.
So when people come to me, I just like to have discussions just to get to know where they're coming from. Now, a story like that is not going to come out probably in 1 hour just meeting somebody. That's going to come over several times of being in sessions and just getting to know each other and building relationship. But in the meantime, and you have already went through that first assessment, what I
Yes.
begin with is assessments. And the very first assessment I like to give people is a breathing one, because like I like to tell people, if the breathing is broken, there's no use in putting anything on top of it, because a coach of mine once said, you never want to put fitness on top of dysfunction.
Mm.
And it just like that last quote, they just make so much sense. Right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
if you're building a house on a foundation that's not good, it's not going to last. And your breath is the earth that you put your foundation on. So the breath is not even the foundation, it's the earth that you're putting the foundation on. So if the earth is not good to build a house on it, then you're not really going to have a good time putting a house on top of that.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned it earlier. You went through the breathing assessment. What has it done for you just in a week or two of bringing a little more attention to how you breathe?
Oh man, there's so many different elements. One, learning, the different types of breathing, right? One of them, kind of like you talked about, that fight or flight type, or the one that basically is going to allow you to,
Yeah.
deep breathe and allow some of that stress to come out. So being cognizant now, right? As you talked about, understanding and not understanding, but now that you understand and
Yeah.
have that cognizance, right, makes a big difference. And so I catch myself, if I'm not breathing the way that I think I should be now, it allows me to go back and correct it, right? If I'm maybe in a stressful situation, rather than allowing that fight or flight mentality to come through, I can control that breathing, which then allows it to come back, bring me back down to that area of like, okay, now we have a reasonable approach to go about this because we've controlled our breathing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also allowed me to de-stress, which allows me to sleep better, which allows me to take some of that load off of my shoulders, so to speak,
Yeah.
to be able to do all that. And again, that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. So then what happens next as we go through some of these other exercises to be able to maybe focus on the pain areas that our body is pointing out to. So yeah, really, I mean, excellent stuff. Scott Brandt, thanks so much for being here. He says drop the mic, with
Boom.
flipping out everything for sure. So Scott, thanks so much for tuning in. Really great to see you here live. And so let's see here. Kind of the next segue here is, a lot of people, a lot of times they're wondering, like, transitioning to maybe from a city like Miami. What led you out here to Colorado?
Well, I've had some friends that have been out here for a few years already, and I've come to visit them every year. And once I started hanging out, with my now wife, and I brought her out here, we both kept, saying we need to go back and visit our friends. And every time we visit, we'd be like, man, we really like this place. We really like being outside. We really like going on hikes. I'm a mountain biker, even though people don't think you can mountain bike in Miami. You can, but there's definitely bigger mountains to launch off here. So our 5-year plan came, to fruition this year. Excuse me. And the 5-year plan was, my son is 20, my daughter's 18, my stepson is 18. And once they were all of age enough to go to college or figure out what they wanted to do with their lives, that our plan was that we were going to come out here. Now, we didn't know that our 5-year plan was going to come with a pandemic in it, but, we almost didn't come. And what made us say, what, let's do it, was because of the pandemic, because the pandemic is bringing change, right? And, we looked at each other one day and we were like, look, if change is to come, let's embrace it. So let's keep going. Let's go.
I love that.
And here we are.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. I know a lot of people who would have probably been paralyzed by that fear, right, of what's coming or the pandemic, not knowing all those things. So Scott says there's an 11% DNA match with trees, and that's why everyone loves Colorado.
Is that what it is?
I know that statistics have shown people being out in nature tend to do a lot of recuperation, whether it's, maybe an emotional drain or a physical drain. Being out with nature tends to help heal a lot of those things. And I'm sure the combination of vitamin D also helps as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I think that there's probably some truth to what Scott says, but I think there's also just having that combination of both, like for a small and local business that gets along so well with large corporations, and you don't see that too often in a whole lot of areas throughout the country. So change is the only constant in life, absolutely. And Patrick Massey, thank you so much for tuning in. He says 2 native sons for life. Let's see if this gets noticed. Yes, we see you. Appreciate you tuning in. So we had a podcast last week where Scott had shared or did a viewing group, and we didn't see any of the comments, so he thought we were maybe ignoring it. So, as you're transitioning, as you're doing a lot of these things, I know that you've worked with, CEOs, actors, actresses, athletes, things like that, people ranging from different levels. What does that process look like for you? Understanding that not everybody is going to be the same, not everyone's going to be on the same level. Have you found that maybe is there a different approach to somebody maybe of higher status versus, somebody who's maybe just working that 9 to 5 or something like that? What does that look like for you?
I would say that there is probably definitely a different approach that you need to take. I wouldn't use the word status.
Sure.
Because a CEO of a company has a certain status, whereas an athlete has a certain status. I don't know if either one is better than another.
Sure.
But they each have their way. So in the picture that I sent you, that I have the red shirt on, it says powerful on there, right?
Yes.
And so I got that shirt from doing the Miami Marathon for a company that's called Powerful Yogurt. And the reason I was even sponsored by them is because I trained their CEO.
Wow.
And, so they're a company that's catering to people that want to be fit with, high protein type of products. And I remember working with him because he was a very high physically capable person, but he had an issue with his neck.
Mm.
And he had what's called cervical spinal stenosis, which is basically where one side of your cervical spine or your neck, it kind of just crunches together until it hits a nerve, and it crunched on his nerve so much that his whole left arm, basically all the muscle went away because
Oh,
it turned off that 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 electrical stimulation
wow.
to
Mm.
his muscle. So his right arm was normal and his left arm was super skinny. And that's not something that I could actually really help him with, because that's already structural damage.
Mm.
And at that point, he needed surgery. But I did tell him this. I was like, look, I can't help you with the structural part of this, but we can do something so that you are not feeding your body inflammation, right? So I put him on a specific, dietary protocol, and he did it for 30 days, because when I give people projects to do, I like to give them an end date. I don't say, oh, well, let's just do this diet, because who wants to do a diet, number one?
Right.
But I did tell him, are you interested in seeing if we can reduce the amount of pain that you have? And of course, he's like, yes. I'm like, okay, if you're interested, there's this protocol we can do. We're going to do it for just this amount of time, just to see if we get any results. If we don't, then we know that didn't work for you. But if we do, then now you know that you have a tool that you can use. So long story short, in 30 days, he lost 16 pounds. And he said that his pain levels in his neck went from a 10 to a 3.
Wow. That's
Right.
awesome.
And that's just through dietary protocol on something that is a structural damage that you really think doesn't have anything to do with each other, but they do.
Yeah.
Now, to continue to answer your question, working with athletes. So working with athletes is a little bit different, because you see, like that CEO, I can get him sore. Actually, he probably wants to be sore. Where when you're dealing with an athlete, if you make an athlete too sore and that slows them down for a game, you're in trouble.
Mm.
Because when you're dealing with an athlete, now you are really truly dealing with a person who you are trying to make them more durable. You're not trying to necessarily make them stronger, faster, at least not during the season. On the off season, you can work on, all right, let's gain a little more weight, let's get a little more speed, let's do all that. But for the season itself, it's all about how can we hold your body together to the best of our ability when you're about to go get into a car accident on the field.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I'm sure Patrick Massey might have some info on there, because he actually played professional basketball for the Harlem Wizards, which is kind of like the yeah, and they're kind of like the Globetrotters, right?
Okay.
I say facts, don't make me sore at all. Yeah. So what I love in your approach, and it is completely different to anything that I've ever been a part of, which was basically where you said, let's address the pain head on, right?
Yeah.
Because our body is always constantly adjusting. And so that was like huge for me. And it was just kind of like, wow, why don't we address that pain on? Usually it's just like, oh, well, hey, we here, take some Tylenol or whatever it is. And to be able to see kind of what that looks like. Patrick says, now I get to say drop the mic. So, what has been, I mean, obviously we know the results and kind of, the end game for all that, but, talk to us a little bit more about what happens when you address that pain head on, and kind of your philosophy in terms of, this life piece that we talked about, how you just want to go here until at the very end, you know what I mean? So those, I think, is really, really big points.
So when it comes to the pain question, and we spoke about this, and I'd like to definitely open this up to anybody out there who would like to, add on to this discussion. But I think our culture looks at pain in a way that they shouldn't. The way we look at it is always trying to hide it, trying to cover it up, trying to silence it, where pain, we intuitively know, is a teacher. Pain is trying to tell us something. And one of the ideas that I'm trying to put out there in the world, or plant seeds for, is that pain is ubiquitous, which means pain is with you at all times. Like I said earlier, if you work out and you're sore, that's a pain. Now it's a pain that builds you. Where if you have a back pain or a hip pain or shoulder pain, that's a pain that's breaking you down. But both of those are still in the realm or the spectrum, as we were talking about, like we did with the colors of pain. Now, we intuitively know the difference between the good ouch and the bad ouch.
Mhm.
So how can we, have a better relationship with those good ouches that inevitably are going to help build you, right?
Yes.
So that's what
100%.
that's the idea I would like to put out there for how we should be, in relationship with pain. Because again, it's there to try to tell you something. And if you keep hiding it and you keep, trying to numb it and keep trying to silence it, it'll go away for a while,
Mm.
but it's always going to come back louder. And if you would have just looked at it when it was a little baby pain instead of a big adult pain, you might have been able to get over it a lot more efficiently.
Definitely. Patrick says, I can fully agree that pain is communicated to our body to let us know things that we need to work or fix and adjust.
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
I'm 100% on board with Patrick there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really crazy is that I feel like that these are like little nuggets of things that we should be taught at an early age or at an adolescence, but for some reason we're not. And do you have any experience or do you have any ideas in regards to thoughts as to why we're not taught something like this?
I'm not so sure. I'm wondering where we planted these seeds for trying to hide from things. And I'm sure if we really wanted to wax poetic and dig deep into this, we could come up with some evolutionary reason where, pain is the thing that typically would kill us back in our ancestral days. So maybe that's one of the reasons we're always trying to get away from it,
Absolutely.
because we didn't understand it back then the way
Sure.
that we kind of do now. And maybe we even understood it better. So I shouldn't even say that. Who knows? Because I'm sure if we go into the middle of the Amazon or we go into some forest somewhere, we'll find some shaman that'll probably say the exact same thing that I'm saying. They're like, no, pain is there for a reason. You
Right.
don't hide it. You look at it and you try to come to terms with it and peace with it so it can teach you whatever it needs to teach you and you grow from it.
Absolutely. Patrick Masses says, I like you already, my guy. Yeah.
Thanks,
I,
Pat.
I mean, this is why we do these stories. Again, I mean, just life philosophies and to understand where people come from, but also telling their vision, telling that story, right? And I think that flips onto something here that is easily to get on board with. And so again, I highly encourage you guys to reach out to Flip. You got all his Facebook information here. Reach out to him, do some assessments, and really understand, like, Flip's goal really is to give you a timetable to be able to allow you to be confident that you can do these things yourself, right? But he also understands that there are people who maybe need that extra push or who just like the way that he does things and lays it out for you, and that's perfectly acceptable as well. But I love the fact that his goal is to be able to teach you these things so that way you are self-sufficient as well.
Yeah, like the saying goes, if I can teach you how to fish, then we're all good because you can fish over there, I can fish over here, and then maybe we can exchange the meals that we've caught for the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Follow the money. This may cut out power because of truth. I think that there's always something to that for sure, Scott. And Flip, like for you, as you've evolved, maybe starting out, getting some certifications, taking this leap to become a business owner to the point that you're at now, what advice would you give back to maybe some entrepreneurs or some people who are kind of maybe on the fence, maybe working a side hustle, trying to get to that point, things like that? What advices would you give to a future entrepreneur?
Well, the first advice I'd give is ask people who are doing it already.
Mhm.
And you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. It is definitely not all roses and sunshine all the
Right.
time. I was listening to one of our local celebrities here, Frank Sinclair, and he was
Yes.
saying he loves when he hears new entrepreneurs saying, oh, I get to make my own schedule and work whenever I want. And he's like, what kind of entrepreneur are you talking about? Because the ones I know are always working. It never stops. There is no, oh, I get to choose my schedule. It's if I don't do it, it doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
So get into those discussions so that you can actually know what it is that you're getting into, and don't let that make you fearful. Or if it does make you fearful, how is that fear going to make you act? Right. So
Yeah.
don't not do it because you're scared. Because is it better to be in a job that you can't stand for half of your life, Or is it better to be a job that you can stand but has some ups and downs as you're building?
Definitely. And I think that the word wealth, a lot of people automatically just assume money, right? But wealth can be a many different things, right? Maybe it's more wealthy to be in a better mental health state,
For
right?
sure.
Maybe wealth can be having the ability not necessarily to pick your schedule per se, but have that flexibility where, you know what, hey, at least I'm going to be able to eat dinner with my family, right? Before maybe I'm back to it, or maybe I'm going to be able to take my kids to the doctors and I can rearrange my schedule, things like that. That's plenty wealth for a lot of people as well. So understanding, the cons, understanding, that it is going to be a lot of work, but um, again, understanding that you get to build it the way that you want, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
So to echo your point, I'm here on my computer, which is a MacBook, right? Which automatically is going to make you think of Steve Jobs, who had all the money in the world and still could not beat cancer.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
Now, I do believe he had monetary wealth, but I think he also had wealth later on in the type of relationships he tried to build with his family and all that. Maybe not so much when he was younger because he was a bit of a hothead, but to your point, wealth is more than just one thing. Because if you're sick in the head and you have all the money in the world, are you really wealthy completely?
Right.
Because you're not healthy. So
Yeah.
again, to your point, it's a puzzle, and that's why I like to tell people I'm the person you come to when you want to put the puzzle together.
Yes. Love that. And a couple more friends stopping in to say hello. Mark Choice, he says, Flip is the man. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, buddy.
Patrick says, I will check out ASAP. Little goes a long way. Support is in your corner, Flip.
Thank you,
And
Patrick.
it says, oh man, Flip, you a Mac user? I don't know now. I'm just kidding. Got your support here. And then Scott says, just like the idea of success. Absolutely, man. So I love the fact that, when we're talking about these things and this advice to people, it's that community effort, right? It's not just, hey, go and talk to so and so because they're doing it. It's go talk to many people,
Yes.
right, who are doing it because they're going to give you the honest answers. And for some people, you just have that deep burning desire to do things your way and you feel like that you can do it better, which is awesome. But there are many people who have that paralysis, right? Because they're fearful because they've been taught this 9 to 5 mentality and things like that. And so again, those are the type of people where talk to other people who've been in your shoes, and it's going to make a world of difference to help you understand exactly what you're getting into, but understanding that everybody's story is never going to be necessarily the same.
Yeah. It's just a different perspective, which can give you, can shine a light on something that you may not have thought of before. Yeah. And, you use the word paralysis. And, right now in my life, I feel that very much. And not even for myself. I feel it because of my son, my 20-year-old son, because I see that he's having right now a lot of paralysis by analysis, because he's at that time in life where, he finished high school. He was a good student. He was also an athlete in school. But ever since he graduated, he's had paralysis by analysis because he's got all the tools. He's a smart kid, again, athlete. So you're basically a scholar athlete, but because he doesn't know what he wants to do, he lets it eat away at him. And it stops him from acting because he's thinking too much that he doesn't know what he wants to do. And, I'm his parent and I'm full of all this wisdom that everybody seems to think I have, but he's not at that point yet where I can really get him to make that connection because he's not ready yet.
Just be careful of Uncle Bob and the van by the river. Absolutely, Scott. How does that translate for you, right? Because you've been doing it for a while. And obviously, as parents, we always want to give the best for our children, but you also have to let them kind of like experience life, so maybe there's a lot of people who also are kind of going through that, right? And so what are your thought processes and what are some of the things that you're doing to help your son during this time of that paralysis?
Well, the first thing is I have to lead by example. I have to live my life and when I say something, I better damn well be doing what I say that I do, because I don't want him to come back and say, oh, well, you wanted me to do all these things, and what are you doing?
Mm, 100%.
Like, I'm not saying any of this to, like, make myself seem bigger than I am, but, like, I don't have a television. I don't, I don't try to I don't want to say distract, but I don't use that as a way to, I read a lot. I listen to tons and tons and tons of podcasts. I should probably go to a 12-step program and and be like, I have a problem. I can't stop listening to podcasts. But, I want to be that example to my children of, I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly trying to better myself, so that, they can't later on come and say, oh, well, you were being lazy, because that just, anytime in my head that I feel that, oh, I kind of don't want to do that, that is the lightning bolt that says, you better get up and go do that right now.
100%. No, I love that, man. And it's what's great is that, you know, how many times do we have that? I think especially parents where it's that do as I say, not as I do type mentality, or maybe we don't even realize that we're doing it, right?
Mhm.
And oftentimes those things trickle down, right? That's why maybe we have some of the idiosyncrasies that we do, because we watched our parents do it for such a long period of time. And so for us to be able to break that cycle, to be able to break those molds, and to do better, which is always the goal of a
Yeah.
parent, right? To do better than what we had and provide better and things like that. So I love the fact that that's your mentality to go into it, is that I have to set that example. I think that says a lot, not only about you as an entrepreneur, but you as a parent as well. Because a lot of people would say, it's just so heartbreaking to watch them, but I have to watch them make their own mistakes, which again, it's part of the process, but
Yeah.
it's that next step in terms of I'm doing my part by
Yeah.
showcasing them what I do.
Yeah.
So,
And at the same time, I have to let them be them, right? Because I was the same. At 18 years old, I left my house because I was tired of living at my mom's house. And, you hear all these things about, the prefrontal cortex doesn't develop until, your mid 20s. But in your 20s, you're definitely much more of an ego driven
mhm.
person, because you just have less experiences and life hasn't quite beat you up as much as it's going to. But yeah, so when I see my son, I give him his space. I try not to lecture, because I remember when he was about 13 years old, he told me that. He's like, why do you lecture me so much? And I turned at him and I was like, thank you for telling me that. I'm going to try to communicate with you in a better way. And now it's not going to happen overnight. I have to practice my communication until it gets better. But, I don't want to be known as somebody who's lecturing to people. I
Sure.
want to be known as somebody who can actually communicate with people.
I love that. Mark Choice, he says, when you feel temptation pulling in one direction, run the other way. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Mark, great, solid advice there, man. And for those of you who are tuning in, a lot of you guys are business owners, entrepreneurs yourselves. What are some questions that you might have for Flip? In regards to anything that he's talked about. Um, it's always a great time to reflect, to see what other entrepreneurs are always also talking about. So feel free to post up your comments in there. We'll do our best to address them during the live today, but if we run out of time, we'll make sure we come back to that. And again, if you guys are interested in connecting with Flip, if you haven't already, make sure you go and like the Facebook page. So facebook.com/sweatnation. You can even go to the website, sweatnation.world. Discover at sweatnation.world is Flip's email. And then he's also on a podcast of his own, multiple platforms, all in all the different areas. So it's under Weyt, Weyt. So make sure that you guys are doing your best to go and support this guy's super incredible. Obviously, if you've been tuned in, you can get the sense that he really has a really big vision to help people. But it's not only just helping people, it's empowering them to be able to help themselves and help others as well. And I think that's something that we could use a lot more of right now. So again, if you haven't already, drop those, and then also type in hashtag Flip. That way Flip knows that you're open to communication as well, even if it's just, some questions that you have, a friend request, because you like the vibes, all those different things. And then my encouragement would, of course, to be go through the assessments with Flip, see what he can do for you. And then also, if you're looking to truly better yourself, So we'll start with that breathing and then maybe slowly reach into to be able to take on that pain head on, as we talked about. So you've seen and already heard all of the things, but I can tell you from in-person experience that that has already been a game changer. So I highly recommend you guys to go ahead and connect with Flip and get on those levels with him. And obviously the philosophy piece, right? I mean, it's huge in terms of who you do business with and all of those stuff. So Flip, just a couple of questions here that we like to ask people here. We've talked about kind of your vision and long term, but what are some things on the bucket list that you're either really proud of that you've already accomplished, or some things that you would like to go ahead and accomplish moving forward?
Well, the first one, and to just bring it back full circle to what we were talking about, I guess my first accomplishment is that I have my 2 children, right? And they may not be exactly where I want them to be, but they do seem to be good people. I really enjoy my children. I haven't spoken a lot about my daughter, but my daughter is really, she's actually hustling. She's got an Instagram business. She's getting, she's crushing it in school right now. So,
Nice.
right now she's going through a nice flow. So I see that Aaron has put something here. So should we read it out loud?
Yeah, it says, "Hey Flip, been good listening. Not really a question, but more of an observation. Your relationship with your son shows the needed dialogue for healthy disagreement to show the willingness to work toward a singular goals slash success. Something I wish today's world was more open to do. Good talk, fellas." Aaron, thank you so much, man, for first of all tuning in, and thanks for that comment. As somebody who manages multiple podcasts, as somebody who I respect and has a lot of great philosophies, I love the fact that you just took the time to just highlight something that you found of value through the podcast from Flip. And I think what is great is that you're able to just pick up on something like that that resonated with you. And I think that we don't do that often enough. So for you to be able to do that real time, thank you again. Flip, any comments to the comment from Aaron?
Yeah, so thank you, Aaron. That's actually my son's name is Aaron. But yeah, it's like we mentioned earlier. When I was that age, I didn't really want to hear anything from my parents. So I try to remember that he's at that time where what he wants is autonomy, right? And he doesn't want somebody down his throat. But I do have to give him his space to let life teach him a thing or two, because when life teaches him a thing or two, then he's going to come back with a little bit more curiosity of, oh, I remember you had told me these things before. And that's all it really comes down to. It's like, go have your experiences, but let's have a relationship where you can always come back and we can speak about them, be them bad, good, whatever they are, because life is going to come. Like, one of the things I like to say a lot is that life comes with both yin and yang. Always.
100%. Yes.
It's always there. So let's talk about all of it.
I love that. Yeah, thanks again, Aaron, for again just tuning in, and then for being able to relieve that comment, man. That's really nice. That and it showcases that the power of podcasting, right? Flip, as you know, a lot of times the attention span for a video may be 2 minutes, but sometimes you get a podcast and you got people listening for 30 plus minutes, and just that platform to be able to provide and all that stuff. So I personally look forward to checking out your podcast and listening to some of the things that you have on there. And the last piece that we like to highlight here, sometimes it's life gets busy, work gets busy, all those different things. But is there anybody that you would like to maybe highlight, or anything that any specific people that are kind of going through maybe your stuff right now that you would like to acknowledge, just in terms of maybe previous mentors, people you're working with, things like that, just to kind of give that opportunity to kind of give thanks back sometimes that maybe we forget about?
So I have a client that I've been working with recently, and this is going to a little bit of what Scott does. So I'm not going to call him a client. I'm going to call him more of a friend now, but he is also a client. But he's going through a divorce. And, I guess you never know when the universe is going to make you cross paths with somebody at the right moment. So we had some friends over from Miami last month for Labor Day, and one of the girls that was here from Miami, she was friends with this guy back in college, and he happens to live 45 minutes southwest of Colorado Springs.
Hmm.
And so she called him, and she's like, "Oh, come hang out, and just hang out with my friends here. We were gonna go have dinner with some other friends we met here in the Springs." And again, you just never know when you're going to meet somebody just at the moment where they need whatever it is they need. And he's going through this divorce, and we just start chatting, and I start giving him some of these same, quotes and advice of that we've said here in this podcast. Long story short, I've been now hanging out with this guy for about 6 weeks, and if you ask him, he will say that the seeds that I've planted in him have already completely changed his life and changed his perspective on how he lives his life. So much so that he invited me to his home where his parents live with him. And his mom came up to me and pulled me aside and was like, "Whatever you're doing with him, keep doing it, because I see the change." And for a parent to see it and say it and acknowledge it and be grateful for it, that in and of itself is all the thanks we need. So that is my buddy Marco, who's been coming over here and being consistent about working on himself.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to just share that. Sometimes we have a lot of these victories, with not for ourselves, but for other people. And sometimes it's nice to be able to just share their perspective, of those things. And, I always try to make time specifically to give thanks. But again, sometimes that's one of the few things that is easy to get go by the wayside when it comes to stuff. So, and then just the last couple of minutes of the time that we have here, is there anything that is maybe heavy on you, or anything that's pressing into you, or, anything in particular about the business, really just kind of your time to really talk about how we can better support you and your business and your endeavors. And then anything else that maybe, that you specifically wanted to talk about today.
Well, when it comes to what's weighing on me, it's, I'm in a new town. I don't have a reputation here yet. Nobody knows what I do. You and maybe a handful of other people have taken me up on the assessments. So right now, if you ask my wife, she's like, "All right, when are you going to start making, so the ends meet a little bit better?" And it's like, she knows that I'm trying, she knows that I'm going to put my head to the grindstone and make it happen. But with COVID, it's made it a little more challenging. And, that obviously weighs on me, because who wants to feel like they're not, carrying as much as they can, because I'm ready to carry the load, but I need the load to build up a little bit here in my new town. But I understand that it's going to take time, and you just got to be patient and put the value out there.
Right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, a big push here, let's help one of our new sons here to Colorado. Let's start getting them some business, take advantage of the assessments. Let's put our name out there, and let's talk about Sweat Nation in these in our conversations with other business owners. And let's get Flip the business that he deserves and help him get his vision. Scott here had a question. He says, if you could be guaranteed one thing in life besides money, what would it be?
Mindfulness.
I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
No hesitation either. So I know that this question, this is probably one of those things that, you've thought about often. So I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Flip, man, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you and your vision and your story and what you bring to the table. And hopefully, definitely through the chat, looks like some of these guys have definitely been enlightened, and we're going to do our part to make sure that we help support you and push you and put your name out there. But again, just the opportunity to connect with you in this short amount of time, I'm thankful for. We're glad to be able to share your story. And guys, again, #Flip, if you would like to go ahead and connect with him if you haven't already. Again, facebook.com/sweatnation. And again, let's go ahead and put this out there, because these are the types of stories, these are the people that we should be supporting, especially as entrepreneurs, as small and local business owners. So thank you so much for your time, guys. We will catch you next time and next week on the Stories Worth Telling. Flip, again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for your time and attention. As I like to say at the end of my podcast, it's the greatest gift we can give to each other.
Absolutely.